artists! My name is Alessa and I'm a teaching artist at LACMA. On today's agenda, we're going to be looking and talking about graffiti art. Then I'm going to show you how to make your own really cool graffiti-inspired drawing. And lastly, we're going to reflect on the lesson. Now let's take a journey into the world of street art. We're going to spend some time looking at this artwork from 2010 titled The Corrido of LA by Gajin Fujita. Now this graffiti artist, Gajin Fujita, wrote The Corrido of LA in the center of the page, and under each letter there are smaller words written that say Ozomatli, LACMA, USC, LAUSD, KIIS, and Gajin 2010. So as you can probably already tell, all of those words are related to Los Angeles. And can you tell what is drawn inside of Corrido? Do you recognize any of the drawings that he did? Well, right off the bat, I can already recognize the skyline of Los Angeles, the downtown. So there's some buildings there in the center. And then, of course, there are the really tall palm trees. And then there's also a helicopter flying in the sky. How do you think this artist feels about Los Angeles? Do you think it's positive feelings or maybe negative feelings? Well, throughout his art, he is able to express how much LA means to him. Gajin is an important person in the LA street art and graffiti community, and he even helped with this project, actually called The Corrido of LA, where students were asked to create a song, which is a corrido, about LA. Now, do you consider this art? Why or why not? And how are the words different from how you write normally? Do you normally write like this in school, or do you write in another way? Well, for the graffiti style lettering, they usually do block or bubble letters. Now let's hop on over to the studio to start making some art. So these are the materials that we will be using for today's lesson. First, we're gonna need 2 sheets of copy paper. Make sure you actually have 2, because on one of the sheets we're gonna be practicing our drawings on, so that's really important. Then we're gonna need a pencil and an eraser. Then lastly, some colored pencils, crayons, and markers. If you don't have all of these, that's fine. Just use whatever you have at home and that'll be great too. Now go ahead and pause the video so you have time to collect all of your materials. And once you have all of your materials gathered and you're back at your area, go ahead and press play. So, one of our keywords that we already talked about is graffiti art. Now, graffiti art is art which is a mark or a drawing that was made in a public place. Graffiti art can also be called street art. So it's basically art that you see when you go outside, maybe it's on a fence or on the side of a building. Now, in order to make graffiti style letters, we will need to use different kinds of lines and shapes. Because when people do graffiti, they don't write like how we normally write. They have a special kind of way where they usually use block or bubble letters, so that's what we will be practicing. So go ahead and use one of the white sheets of paper. Now this is the paper that we're going to be practicing on. So if it doesn't come out perfect, that's fine, because we are just going to be practicing on this paper. So for step 1, our practice page, first we're going to start off practicing block letters. Now when we do block letters, we usually use a lot of straight lines and angles. So anything that has angles is what we're going to be using. So first, let's try using our name to practice. So when you write and when you're practicing, you want to make sure you draw very lightly, because we will be erasing after, and I will explain why. And you also want to make sure you leave a finger space between each letter, and this part is also very important, and I will explain why in a second. So once you have your name written out, remember this is just for practice, you are going to outline every letter of your name using straight lines and angles. So you see all these corners that I'm using? So that is how we do block letters. So this is a really easy trick Some of you might already know how to do block letters, so you can do your own. But in case you don't know, this is a really easy trick. Now, when you are tracing around, make sure you trace around the letter, and sometimes you will even need to trace inside, like for the E. And over here, I forgot to trace the inside for the A. And now I'm doing the S. And so notice how the letters become bigger and fatter, and that's why I told you to leave some finger space in between each letter. That way when we do the block letters, there's enough room. So now this seems like there's a lot going on. So that's why we are going to use our eraser to erase the inside line. And that's why I told you all to draw lightly. That way when we erase it, you don't see any of the lines. And there you go. So that's the trick for the block letters. Now, another style is called bubble letters. Now, bubble letters use more curvy lines and there's almost no angles. And you can probably guess that it looks like bubbles. So I'm gonna start with my name again. Remember to draw lightly, leave a finger space between every letter. And then we're going to do the same thing. We're going to trace outside of the letter, but this time, instead of using angles and corners, we're just gonna be using these curves. And don't forget to do the outside. The L is really easy. It looks like a long bubble. Don't forget the inside of the E. And you're going to keep doing this until you reach the end. And just like how we did with the block letters, you are going to erase what's on the inside. And that way, once you're done erasing, you are only left with the bubble letters. So this is one of the styles that sometimes graffiti artists use. Oh, and I forgot to do the inside of the A. And once I'm done erasing, you have bubble letters. If you want, you can get creative, and maybe you want to do like a little swirl over here, or you want to do another swirl on this A, and you can erase that, and you can add your own creative touch to it. Once you're finished practicing your name, maybe you want to keep practicing your last name, or maybe you want to practice another word. So go ahead and keep practicing your bubble letters and your block letters, and once you think you're done practicing, go ahead and pause and then play the video. So go ahead and take this time to practice, pause the video, and when you're ready to meet me back here, press play. For step 2, we are going to be using our second sheet of paper, and make sure you put it horizontal, meaning side to side. And on this sheet of paper, first we are going to write in the center the name of a city that you remember visiting. It could be a city that you've recently visited, or it could be somewhere you went a long time ago, or if you want, it could even be the city you live in. So if you live in Los Angeles, you could write Los Angeles, or you could write LA. If you live in New York City, you could write your own city. So you could write any city you want, as long as you live in it or you've been to this place. So as soon as you know what city you're doing, for example, I already did mine, I'm doing Miami, since I'm from Miami. You are going to write that city in the center of the page using the block or bubble letters that we just practiced. So as you can tell, I used some bubble letters. So this one I did bubble letter, this one I did block, this one I did a combination of both of them. So you could really do however you want, just as long as it's in block or bubble letters or some sort of combination. And remember to write that in the center, leaving a finger space between each of them. You can also get creative with your word. For example, in Miami, there's a lot of palm trees. And so I drew a palm tree instead of an I. And then for this last I, normally there would be a dot on top of it. But since our basketball is the Miami Heat and their symbol is this basketball on fire, I chose to do that on top of the I instead of doing a regular dot. So you can incorporate some fun things like that too. For step 3, we're going to focus on the background. So if you're on step 3, that means you already have the name of your city written in the center in bubble or block letters. Then we are going to move on to the background. So for the background, you're going to draw something that reminds you of this city. For example, if you chose New York, you could draw some really tall buildings. You could draw Central Park. If you chose Los Angeles, you could draw the Santa Monica Pier with a Ferris wheel. Since I chose Miami, I'm going to draw some palm trees in the back because there are lots of palm trees. There's palm trees everywhere you go. And then make sure you draw this in the background so it doesn't cover up your beautiful letters. Miami also has a lot of buildings, so maybe I'll do some tall buildings in the background. And you want to make sure to cover up almost the whole page. And then maybe one more background here. And then another thing that Miami has is a lot of beaches. So I'm gonna draw some water over here and then the sand. So once you have your background all drawn, go ahead and pause the video so it gives you time to finish the background, and then play the video once you have your background drawn out. So now if you're on step 4, that means that you already did your bubble and block letters in the center of the city that you chose, and you also already finished drawing in the background things that remind you of that city. So make sure that you already have all of that done before we start step 4. As you can see, I chose to do some city buildings, some sand and the beach and the palm tree. I did a plane driving on the top and then a dolphin jumping into the water. So for step 4, we are going to use the markers and we are going to outline our bubble or block letters that we did in the center. And that's all that we're going to do in marker, just outline the bubble or block letters. Now for step 5. Step 5 is when we're going to use either your colored pencils or your crayons, whatever you have, and you're going to color the background. Now we want to make sure that the background is completely colored and that the inside of the letters stay white. And this is important because this is going to add contrast, which is one of our key words. And this is going to add contrast to your drawing. And what that does is that since the inside is going to be white and the background is going to be colored, it's going to make your letters pop out because of the contrast. So I will be using colored pencils. And I'm going to start coloring first the buildings. And then I'm going to take my time and color the rest of your drawing. So in this step, this is when you color the whole background. Now, once you're done coloring, that's it. You have finished your own graffiti-inspired drawing. Now that you've finished with your own drawing, it's time for the reflection. So as we've already talked about, Gajin is a well-known graffiti artist and he probably spent a lot of time developing his graffiti style. How did you decide what style you were going to write in? Did you choose bubble or block letters? Did you do a combination of both? Or did you make up your own style like how Fujita did? Did you add little details like a star on top of the eye or maybe a flag? So how does your style compare with his? Also, in his Corrido drawing, he wrote down places and things that reminded him of LA underneath each letter. For example, he wrote LACMA under the O, He wrote USC under the R, which is a college, and he even wrote LAUSD, which is our school district, under the other R. What did you choose to represent your city? Did you do nature? Did you do buildings? How did you represent the city that you wrote? For example, for me, I chose to represent it with buildings because we have a lot of really tall buildings in downtown, and then a beach with a dolphin jumping with palm trees because we have a lot of those in Miami. Thank you for joining me today in the studio. Next time that you're out walking or taking a drive, try to spot some graffiti art in your neighborhood. It really is all around us. And keep watching the videos in this course because we have more fun art projects coming up. Can't wait to see what you all create next. Bye!